2019 presidential election is widely seen as the main challenger to President Macky Sall's ruling party. And away from Africa, but still on electoral matters, the U.S. Supreme Court has said it will hear a historic case to determine if Donald Trump can run for president. The justices agreed to take up Mr. Trump's appeal against a decision by Colorado to remove him from the 2024 ballot in that state. The case will be heard in February, and the ruling will apply nationwide. Lawsuits in several states are seeking to disqualify Mr. Trump, arguing that he engaged in insurrection during the U.S. Capitol riots 3 years ago. The legal challenges hinge on whether a Civil War-era constitutional amendment renders Mr. Trump ineligible to stand as a candidate. The Supreme Court's decision to hear Mr. Trump's appeal came after attorneys general from 27 states filed a brief asking the court to reject Colorado's ruling. In it, they argue that removing Mr. Trump from the ballot would create widespread chaos. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution bans anyone who was engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding federal office, but the former president's lawyers argue it does not apply to the president. Now, Americans watched in horror on 6 January 2021 as rioters marched through barricades and ransacked the U.S. Capitol with the goal of stopping the certification of Joe Biden's election. As Trump supporters stalked the halls of Congress and lawmakers fled to safe rooms in fear. The country seemed united in its disgust, yet 3 years on, the fundamental event of that day established through eyewitness testimony, thousands of hours of footage, hundreds of indictments, and one of the most extensive investigations in federal and congressional history are no longer agreed upon. On Friday, the eve of the riot's anniversary, current President Joe Biden evoked the violence in a campaign speech near Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, warning of its enduring effect on U.S. democracy. And joining us on World Now to discuss this is a global affairs analyst, Ejike Opa. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at this hour.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as Americans gear up for another tense presidential election, what's your reaction to the Supreme Court's decision, and how do you think this will affect the vote?
Well, I mean, the Supreme Court is the ultimate arbiter in a matter of issues surrounding questions whether one can or cannot. So I am pleased that the court has decided to take it up, and by February next month, we'll give a ruling for or against. And I am very confident they're going to see there is no reason to prevent somebody who has not been convicted. And Trump has not been convicted. There's been allegation. Of course, there was the riot of January 6th. Committee, the House committee that looked at it has not come out with a definite accusation that led to either a federal prosecutor charging Trump for that. So all these attempts by states to stop him, there are some states have stopped him, refused to put him on the ballot. Then there are also other states that rejected it. So we have to go to the Supreme Court to make a decision, and when that decision will come next month. So between Biden and Trump, since Biden took office, every day that Biden was in the news, Trump was in the news. So it has been a very 3 years plus. We have to deal with this, but that's the American politics of these days. We are very divided, but at the same time, we get things done. Thank God for the country we live in, where the antics of the president not necessarily disrupt our lifestyle, because in America we say every politics is local. So we're still doing our local thing, just watching the national politics play out.
All right, still talking about the stance by the Supreme Court. Let's have your perspective quickly on what you think the general assessment, in the upcoming election in the United States will be if the U.S. court decides that Trump cannot run for presidency.
Well, if they decide, then he's out, and then other candidates seeking nomination in the GOP will all begin to fight each other for that. But I am very confident. Again, for disclosure's sake, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm a Republican by choice. I don't have anything against the Democrats, but I just prefer to be on this side of the coin. You know, so we waiting, there's tension, Trump is still raising money each time they have tried all this stuff. It's more like what we say in America, throwing everything at the wall to see what is going to stick. Each time they've tried to throw things at Trump, his popularity has gone up, his sympathy index is high. Joe Biden, approval rating is the lowest of any modern day president. He can't seem to get out of it no matter what it is he's saying. He's not physically able. If you see him as a president, I mean, you want a president to look, when you look at your president, you want to be inspired. I don't think, Biden inspires anybody when you see him, either speak or take a walk. So that is neither here or there. It could be a biased opinion of mine, but no president, since I've been in America 36 years plus now, no president has looked like Biden. He's got his fame under the sun. We'll see whether he wins re-election, but it's very, very unlikely.
Now, let's assume he can run. Do you think the insurrection will spoil Trump's chances of emerging as the president?
Well, I mean, there are people who's gonna, whatever, either way the Supreme Court goes, there are people who just don't like him, and there are people who are gonna vote for Biden not because because they just don't like Trump. That's just the nature of politics. So the insurrection thing they have been saying, like I said, no court has indicted him on the basis of that. Remember, this is an amendment to the Constitution that was done way back in after the Civil War to keep people who the Confederates from aspiring to be president of America. That was the sole purpose of that. But since then, we've had, I mean, when Clinton lost to Trump, there were some things she did, we could, somebody could have accused her of insurrection. She never recognized, the president or sent a congratulatory message. So there are other things, Biden, George Bush, Al Gore, there were riots, there were all kinds of stuff. So, but this is America. It creates more body of knowledge for the political scientists and as well as the lawyers. I mean, again, the lawyers are the ones making work out of this. They're filing cases and making arguments, but again, somebody has to make a decision, and the Supreme Court is going to make that final decision. Again, I'm very confident, and I hope, that they rule in his favor, so we can get this behind us and let's get into the campaign. The campaign is the campaign, and let's the voters, the American voters, should be the ultimate people who decide who serves them. Remember, in America, the three things to become a presidential candidate is what? You're born here, 35 years of age, 12 years to the day you file, you have consistently lived in America. That's it. He made no mention of felony record. If you have a felony record, let the people reject you because they don't want you to serve them with such a record, but not for a court or an administrative structure to say you cannot run. When I ran for mayor of Dallas in 2003, the secretary of the city said I wasn't qualified, even though I met all the criteria. Then I didn't just go away. I sued the city of Dallas, and I won because I wanted a judge to take a position on that. And because of the time, at the time, the case has to be expedited because, we can't delay the election. We can't change the date. It's not like Nigeria where they throw out the date and start going to court. A federal judge looked at my petition, looked at the city, counter, and they ruled in my favor, and I was put back on the ballot. It's not just running. You want to be on the ballot because that's what we call the write-in candidate, where you can go in and write the name of somebody, and if that person gets the number of votes more than anybody, he wins. But I wanted to be on the ballot, and the city said I couldn't be on the ballot because I wasn't qualified, and then I sued them, and I won. So that's what we're going to see whether that will happen for Trump. Not Colorado, not Maine, no other state has the right to do that. But they have to do it because, again, they want to see what, they want to see what is the outcome. American law sometimes is you go test the law. You go test it by filing a lawsuit, and then you see whether you win or lose.
Right. Thanks indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okwa, of course, sharing his thoughts with us on the upcoming elections in the United States and, of course,